What's up everybody, it's Man of Low Moral Fiber here. My name's Luke, and in this video I'm going to be taking on round 5 of the Creature Slaughter Dome out in the Wildlife Exploitation Preserve, using a melee 0 at overpower level 8. This 5th round consists of 5 different waves of Varkids, Threshers, Spiderants, and Skags, all different types of wildlife in the game. In this very first wave there is a badass Varkid that spawns. I recommend you prioritize that Varkid, and then try to take out the rest of them, hopefully before they start evolving. If you're able to kill quite a few in the larval stage, you'll get past the first wave of the enemies here in the Creature Slaughter Dome very easily. This wave isn't that difficult at all. In fact, most of this round is actually a lot easier than the 4th round of the Creature Slaughter Dome, where the Varkids are quite heavy, and I think there are some Spiderant spawns as well that can be a little bit difficult. One of the most dangerous enemies that spawns in here is a slag Spiderant. For melee 0, those can definitely pose a threat because they make stripping your shield a fight for your life sequence. And that can definitely be a problem for, if you're trying to strip shields and you haven't noticed you're slagged. Sometimes it's a little bit difficult to notice you've been slagged when you're already in deception, because usually you'd be able to see the little purple mist, but when everything has dyed a bluish hue because you are in deception, it can definitely be a little bit tougher. Chain Lightning and the Height of Terramorphous Nova will end up taking out quite a few of these enemies, because some of them have relatively low health, such as Skag Pups and unevolved Varkids, as well as some smaller Spiderants as well. Now round 4 of this particular mission is actually really good for trying to spawn Verm, because you get an Ultimate Badass Varkid guaranteed. And I'd say round 4 is actually a little bit harder than round 5 on the whole. Round 5 does have a little bit of difficulty at the very end. They weighted the difficulty curve so that it's not that hard until the last round, actually midway through the last round, when a few Ultimate Badass Elemental Skags start spawning. And those Skags can sometimes lure you to this side of the map, and then an Ultimate Badass Pyro Thresher will spawn, right below you, often putting a fire damage over time that will eventually put you in fight for your life mode. And that can be pretty tough, and you definitely want to avoid that. That's basically the trick to the round 5 of the Creature Slaughter Dome, is that once you're in the 5th round, you need to be ready for when that Ultimate Badass Pyro Thresher is going to come. And if you can figure out how to survive his initial bombardment and everything, you're probably going to get through the round. Especially since that's at the very end. If you get past him, there's not really that much left to kill. Maybe a Rabbit Skag, but that's all. I find this area pretty fun to just kind of mob about with 0. You get to kill quite a few enemies pretty quickly. I wish they would have made these missions repeatable by default. I'm not really sure why they didn't make these missions repeatable, especially since this was at one point paid DLC. It was pretty easy to access it without paying it though, but they did put this behind a paywall, whether it was pre-ordering from a certain retailer, who's really just a shitty retailer overall. Obviously I'm talking about GameStop. But also, they eventually released it as a standalone $5 DLC that basically just gave you access to this particular mission and a few golden guns. And that didn't really fly too well with a lot of people, and it actually, probably didn't go over too well as a DLC. However, like I said, it's, damn easy to access this without paying it. All you need is a friend to bring you into the area, or the Gibbed save editor. And either way, then you'll have access to the DLC, or I don't even really consider it DLC. It's not downloadable content. It's just content that they chose to lock. It was definitely part of the game at one point before GameStop eventually paid $2K to let them have this little portion of the game, hidden behind their pre-order, and that was the only way to access it at one point. I think that's kind of a dirty business practice, to be honest with you guys. But we're not going to delve too much further into that subject. Maybe another time, though. At this point, we are cruising through. We're about halfway done with the round, more or less. He actually says that you're halfway done once you've completed the 3rd round. But obviously, there's only 5 rounds, and that's not really divisible evenly by 2. So he says it a little bit late. And so once he says you're over halfway through, you're well over halfway through. Unfortunately, the latter rounds do take a little bit longer, so maybe he's right. After round 3 is about the halfway point because there are more enemies in 4 and 5. However, if you're just counting it by rounds, once you're done with round 3, you're technically 60% done, which is a lot better than 50%. Now, I really don't like these spider ants that disappear into the ground, these fire spider ants. Obviously, they're worse in Digistruct Peak, where they have an increased damage reduction. However, they are annoying everywhere. I think it's kind of silly to have an enemy actually disappear, especially when that enemy is regenerating health while it disappears. It just seems kind of silly to me. I'm definitely not a fan of those little spider ants at all. Now, this is the part I was talking about that can be a little bit difficult. We have to deal with these 2 ultimate badass Skags here. Looks like I got 1 in fire and 1 in corrosive. I believe that those are the 2 weakest of the Skags you could get. If you got a slag Skag, sorry, I had trouble pronouncing that for whatever reason. Those are definitely a lot more dangerous because with Zer0, it can make it so that you won't be able to strip your shield. There can also be some slagged stalkers that spawn in this particular area, and slagged spider ants. Actually, I'm not sure on the stalkers. I am sure on the slagged spider ants, though. And so you have to watch out for those guys, because if you get slagged and try to strip your shield, it's going to put you in fight for your life, and maybe in a position where you won't have a easy second wind, and you might actually die because of it. So you gotta watch out for those slagging enemies. Now here is the ultimate badass Pyro Thresher, or Pyre Thresher. He's pretty tough. If he applies that fire damage over time for you, you can definitely be in some trouble there, and so you're going to want to watch out for that, especially at overpower levels. I use the Chain Lightning to help recover my health. Looks like I caught the 1 fire damage over time bug there, instead of the full fire effect, and that helped me survive. Otherwise, I most likely would have gone down. I could have thrown more Chain Lightnings and tried to survive, but most likely I would have died. So now the Thresher is about, I'd say, 60% health or so, and we're going to try to get an execute on him to kill him. I can't really tell if he's slagged because he lights up so orange anyway. I'm not even sure he has a purple model. I think he does turn a little bit more purple, but as you can see, that execute was able to take him out. And once you've got past him, there's really not that much left. Just a rabid Skag, and that's all. Now, all the creature slaughter domes had a particular Moxie weapon attached to them, or not all the creature slaughter domes, all the slaughter domes in general. In the vanilla game, at least, there was the Bandit Slaughter, which gave the Hail, which is a Vladoff assault rifle with an arcing pattern. The Hyperion one gave the Cher-Ami, which is a healing sniper rifle. It's not the greatest gun, it's not the greatest Moxie gun, but it is decent for some particular applications. And this particular quest ends up giving us the Creamer, which I think is the best Moxie weapon of the ones that are offered. However, some people get quite a bit of use out of the Hail as well. But of the Hail, Cher-Ami, and Creamer, I think the Creamer is the best Slaughter Dome reward of all of them. The Creamer is a really good weapon with Axton and Krieg for a couple different things. So we're going to go ahead and get that Creamer now. We'll take a look at it. I'll be sure to show you guys my gear and skill build, and if you haven't yet, please take the time to subscribe. I'd appreciate that. I do thank you guys very much for watching. I'm going to take a little look at the Creamer here. It heals for a decent percent, and it shoots a rocket that after a certain amount of distance splits into 2 other rockets. And so if you shoot enemies from just the right distance, you will be dealing 3 times the damage listed on the card. And that can make for some great blood explosion chains and healing with Axton as well. It's a really good and, in my opinion, underrated launcher. So like I said, guys, I do thank you very much for watching, and I hope to catch you next time. Bye, guys.